3-6 is officially called solving two-steps equations. So solving two-step equations. And what I really mean by that is so far you've only done one thing. You've either added 7 to both sides or maybe multiplied both sides by 2 or something like that. What we're looking at now is you're going to have to do 2 operations to both sides to get the answer. This first part here in blue I wouldn't write. I wouldn't write anything until we get down to the part where it says rules. But what I'm trying to do is this. I'm just kind of trying to show like what happens. That if we were to do a 3 times 4 plus 2, the order we combine those in matters for getting our answer. First we have to combine what 2 numbers? The 3 times 4. Order of operations tells us we have to multiply before we do addition. So we have to change that to a 12 plus 2. And 12 plus 2 is 14. So you could take that original one and say it equals 14. Agreed? What we're doing when we're solving equations is kind of like that sort of thing but backwards. So maybe I'm going to take, and let's pick this color. I'm going to say we don't know that this here was a 4. That we have this original problem that it's really just a 3x plus 2. We know that it equals 14, but we want to work backwards and figure out what number did that x have to be to make it equal to 14. Agreed? And we all know it's 4 because we just did the problem when we knew it was 4. But I want to say, how would you figure out that it's 4? So what we're really doing is we're taking what we did initially, in that we had this problem, we worked down here to get to the 14. We need to do that backwards. And just like when we took and worked downward, we had to multiply first, and then we had to add. If we want to undo that, we have to do order of operations, but do them backwards. So the first step is kind of like, well, how would you get up one step there? We have to do the inverse of adding 2, which is subtracting 2. So we go and subtract 2 from both sides. When we do that, those drop out, and we have 3x equals 12. And then to do that like next step from here to here, we'd have to undo multiplying by 3, and to do that we would divide by 3. And then those 2 cancel, leaving us with x equals 4. So do you see how we're kind of doing the opposite operation, where over here on the left we multiplied, over here we're dividing. Here we added, here we're subtracting. So we're doing the inverse, or kind of the opposite operation. Agreed? But we also have to do it in the opposite order, where in going this way, when you're trying to just evaluate something, you have to multiply before you add. Now we need to subtract before we divide. You kind of with me? Because we're working backwards, so we need to do the inverse operation in the opposite order. All right, so this is what I would actually write. That rules. And this is going to work if you have like exponents and parentheses and all that too. We just don't quite kick you in the teeth with those quite yet. But there's really 2 rules that if you apply these 2 rules, you can solve for any variable, even with exponents and square roots and parentheses and so on. So the order that you do the steps, so the order is one thing. You need to know what order do you get the variable by itself. Well, if we have our please excuse, so I'm going to do PE, then M and D like that, one above the other, and then A and S. We have order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. We have to go backwards. So I'm going to say backwards. So backwards when solving. Often it's going to be for X, but I'm going to say for a variable. So if you're trying to find what x equals, or what y equals, or n, or whatever the variable is in the equation, you have to first do all of your adding and subtracting. Then once you've taken care of what's connected by adding or subtracting, then you go to multiplication and division. Then eventually you'll get exponents in your problems, and then parentheses as well. So that's the first thing. You need to know what order to do the problems in. And then the second thing is what we've been doing all along. Do the inverse operation to both sides. So do the inverse operation to both sides of the equation. I'm just going to do an EQN to save space. So do the inverse operation to both sides of the equation. So number 2 is what we've been doing for the last few days in class. Any questions before we jump to some examples? All right, then a few examples to work through. My first one, I'm going to have a 5x minus 9 equals 46. So as we're solving this, we do order of operations backwards. I'm going to write this. Most people won't bother, but we do addition and subtraction first. So first we do what to both sides? Yep. So we add 9 to both sides. That 9 is connected by subtraction, so we have to do the inverse of subtraction. We add. Then my 9s will drop out, leaving me with a 5x equals 55. And now we're done with all of our addition and subtraction over here, so we could do multiplication division. 5 is connected by multiplication, so we have to divide. And then x would be 11. In a perfect world, us math teachers try to get you to check your work. And we say, oh, take this 11 and put it in there for the x and see if it worked. So you could say, well, 5 times 11 minus 9. Well, that's 55 minus 9. So that's 46. And we were supposed to get a 46, so we know that it works. So.
We have to do that.
Second example, x divided by 2 plus 12 equals 38. First step is do what to both sides?
Subtract 12.
Yep, so look at what's connected by addition or subtraction. So it was a plus 12, so we subtract 12. The 12s drop out, so we have x over 2 by itself equals 26. And then last step is to multiply by 2. And then those drop out, leaving us x equals 52. Maybe do one final one. I'm going to say a negative 3/4 x. So negative 3/4 times x plus 8 equals 20. So try doing a couple of cruel things in here. First step is to do what to both sides?
Subtract 8.
Nice. So we always look at what's connected by addition and subtraction first. And move that.
Plus 8.
Yep.
Subtract.
Well, subtract 8 from both
No, I
sides.
thought you said multiply.
Okay. So negative 3/4 x is left on the left side. And we have that equaling 12. If you want to do this all in one step, next you would, by negative 3/4. My guess is most people at this point are just going to take and punch that into their calculator, and that is fine with me if you want to do that. If you're a purist and you want to say, well, that's going to be 12 times a negative 4 over 3, you could go through and then say, okay, that's negative 48 over 3, which helped me. Anyone? X is going to be a negative 16? Does that seem right? Because that'd be 30 plus 18, negative 48. So x equals negative 16. But as long as you know how to use your fraction key, you're welcome to use your calculator on ones like that too.